We call the Saluda School District 1 Board of Trustees meeting to order. It's March 15th. We're at Saluda High School. I'm going to ask Commander Moore if you would have your invocation.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you, Lord, for all the blessings that you have poured out on us. Lord, we thank you for this opportunity that you have given us to come together to do the business of Saluda School District 1. Lord, we pray that as we make decisions, as we hear information, that we will act in accordance with your will, Lord, and that we will do what's best for the students, staff, faculty, and the taxpayers of Saluda County. Lord, we thank you again for this opportunity. We ask your blessings upon us. And it's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Commander Moore. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. You received a copy of the minutes in your packet. Are there any additions or deletions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the minutes from February 22nd, 2021.
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Nichols, second by Dr. Puryear. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Vote unanimous. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Dr. Livingston?
No changes, Dr. Coleman.
A motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Jordan, second by Ms. Holloway. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Vote unanimous. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the Saluda Primary School Spotlight.
Yes,
Dr.
ma'am.
Livingston?
Dr. Coleman, the board, this is without a doubt become, probably one of the best things we have added to the agenda in the past several years. But, I'm going to ask, Ms. Tammy Shore to come up, principal of Saluda Primary School, and she's going to spotlight, the great things going on at, Saluda Primary School. And, just to let the board know, next month we will have the elementary school and the middle school. And then for May, we will have the high school in addition to our career technology center. So, Ms. Shore?
Thank you, Dr. Livingston. First and foremost, we would like to say on behalf of Saluda Primary School, thank you guys for all your support throughout the school year. We absolutely could not do what we do on a daily basis without your continued support. And you should have heard the other day whenever our teachers received their bonus, the squeals throughout the hallways, and just thank you so very much for remembering us and the day-to-day grind that they are doing in the school building. So thank you very kindly for that. So let's meet our faculty and staff at Saluda Primary School. Give some little bullets.
Yes.
You want me to put this so we can listen? There we go.
It's the laptop.
Yeah. Our faculty and staff at Saluda Primary School, we work so hard and so well together. I could not ask for a better team. That our team truly is focused on creating an amazingly strong academic community for our students. Our enrollment at Saluda Primary School, we have 434 students in pre-kindergarten through second grade. We have 33 students that are full distance learners. 13 of those are kindergarten and 20 of those are first and second grade. And we have right at 148 students that are served through our ESOL program on a daily basis. Our goals for the 2021 school year, Saluda Primary will ensure total engagement. It is taking place in all the classrooms to fully implement technology in all the classrooms, to continue to raise the expectations for all staff and students, and to foster a positive social and emotional climate throughout our school building. In order to our first goal is total engagement. Our teachers have been working really hard through our professional development, which we meet each Wednesday here in our cluster meetings with learning Kagan structures and total participation techniques. Both Kagan structures and total participation techniques really work to help build vocabulary and then foster that language that our children so desperately need, to really help for them to build their confidence within the classroom so they feel much freer to be able to participate and add to the discussion within the classroom. Also, Letterland, which is used daily, is a phonics program that helps to build our students' phonics knowledge, so to build to become better readers. Technology in the classroom has been another tremendous focus with our professional development. Our teachers have learned how to do Google Suites, which is Google Classroom, Google Applications, Google Slides. All of them, down to our 4-year-old learners, they are able to use their technology devices. And we also use those on a daily basis. The students all know how to log on to Google Classroom and how that functions, and to be able to, on our last Thursday for our e-learning day, even our youngest learners were able to log on, and we had right at 250 students to log on at 8:15 in the morning, and stay on with our teachers till almost 10:30 or 10:45 that day. Our teachers did push out lots of assignments for the afternoon, so the students were able to log on and complete those assignments on Thursday afternoon. Learning has looked a little different this year. Because we were unable to take field trips this year, we have brought a lot of professionals to our classroom, and we've Skyped with some of the professionals. Some of our teachers and students were quarantined, so this is what our Google Classroom somewhat looked like. And then we also had a teacher that was quarantined over on the far right, and she said, "But Ms. Joy, I don't feel bad, I really want to keep teaching." So I called Dr. Liv and said, "Can we just have a monitor in the classroom and Skype her in and let her teach?" And so she just taught right on, even though she had COVID, she wanted to teach, and so we never missed a beat there. We also have brought in some of our full distance learners' parents to teach them how to use the devices, and have been at their disposal to be able to take care of those needs. Here are our full distance learning classes, and as I said earlier, we have 13 kindergarten children and 20 first and second graders, and I cannot say enough about these two ladies, Ms. Jensen and Ms. Furlong. They really just dove into that situation, did a great job. We did have them take a virtual session that was provided by Kagan Structures, and they were able to learn a lot of new apps that we're able to push out and to strengthen what they are doing there in the full distance learner world. We want to continue to raise the expectations for all of us at Saluda Primary School, and we're doing that through weekly team planning. Each week on Mondays, Ms. Ergel, our literacy coach, as well as Ms. Deloach, our assistant principal, go to the team planning meetings and actually help the teachers make sure that our lessons are aligned with standards and make sure that they are strengthened so that they are high quality lessons. Each month, I take that lead on our data meetings, and we meet with the teachers. We look at children individually to kind of see where they are in the classroom and how they're performing, what are their strengths, what are their deficits, where we need to really work to foster and strengthen those students there. We were able to employ reading interventionists that have done a tremendous job working hand in hand with our teachers. We do have SRA, which is a very explicit model of instruction that teaches our children vocabulary and language, and actually how to use that language in putting it into sentences. RISE, which you heard me speak of this the last time, is Reading Inspires Students to Excel. And we have selected 48 students to be able to go into the RISE room. As they're in the RISE room, they rotate through each of the stations. There's 4 stations, one working with familiar reading, 2, the new book orientation, prompting and working with students, and then guided reading and word work. And a picture is always worth 1,000 words, so we wanted to kind of show you a quick look at what it looks like in our RISE room.
because once you know yes, you have to check and see if you're right. Yes? So we're going to say it really slow like turtle and see if all these sounds look right. Ready? Here we go. Hound. Does that look like the word loud? So are you right? Yes. Go back and read it again. Some turtles live under sea. Or in Alright.
So with our RISE program, we serve 48 students the first 8 weeks. 66% of our students grew 3 or more text levels in 8 weeks, which is phenomenal growth. We have started our next rotation, and we'll begin working with those, and we are sure that we will be able to experience that same growth. Our reading interventionists here again are working with students, building that vocabulary and language development and working with our SRA program. So with all of this put together, our students in kindergarten with our text levels, right now we have 92% of our students at or above grade level with kindergarten. First grade we have 63% and second grade we have 68% with their text levels where they need to be. Classroom instruction, of course, we're continuing our balanced literacy with our shared reading and guided reading. We're using Big Ideas Math for our math curriculum, and then, of course, right from the beginning. Our PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention and Supports, is still tremendously strong at Saluda Primary School. Our students are phenomenal. They receive weekly individual incentives for those who are roaring, being respectful, organized, attentive, and responsible. They receive classroom incentives as well as school-wide incentives. And to date, we just had 28 discipline referrals, and those were just for minor infractions. Social and emotional for our teachers, it's so important that we really work hard to take care of our teachers. And our administrative team, we're constantly doing little things along the way to just kind of pick up morale. We always have a first Friday snack in the teacher workroom for them to be able to go in and enjoy snacks. We had Halloween treats for our teachers in the workroom. We also had a special Christmas gathering. We enjoyed, and thank you very much for letting us watch the Lady Tigers do a phenomenal job on the basketball court. Our whole school was, even our little babies were in there and watching that and totally enjoyed it. And then, of course, Teacher Appreciation Week, always to just continue those morale boosters. Social and emotional support for our students as well. Ms. Gilmore does a fantastic job with the Golden Gate Initiative, really teaching our children to respect each other and treat each other with tremendous kindness. We recognize Students of the Month of our little cubs who are roaring loudly for the month and doing a great job both in and out of the classroom. Then our guidance meets with small groups and individuals to continue support there. And then, of course, we had the school-wide celebration. We had the Polar Express Day, as well as Read Across America Day, so our kids enjoyed both of those. Our community partnerships this year have been excellent. The Saluda County Sheriff's Department, Saluda County local churches, Leah's Literacy Project, Waters House, and First Steps all have contributed to our students and continue to provide the needs on a daily basis for our children. Our family events, we held 2 virtual events, one for the Fall Literacy Night, and then we did a Christmas Around the World. And Ms. Deloach and I were talking about this the other day. Even when things go back to normal, or what we think is normal, we thought it'd be really great to continue some of these virtual parent nights, because oftentimes when parents come into the school building and they see the teachers everywhere, even though it's a nightly event, they kind of back off and let the teachers work with the children. But with the virtual events, the parents were in there, they were enjoying it, the teacher was providing that support, but they just really had a great time. And at the end of the night, of course, we got together all the supplies, all the materials, and sent home everything so that the children would have what they needed to be able to do the activities at home with their parents, and everybody just seemed to have a really good time with those. So virtual family nights will continue. And then last but certainly not least, we wanted to share all these things that are taking place in our school. Not gonna lie, it's been treacherous from time to time, really making sure that everything continues forward and moving on. And so for the 100th day of school, and I know many of you probably heard about it, saw it, or what have you, but we could not pass it up without sharing a few of the highlights. All the teachers came together and we talked about, we want to make this a special day. We wanted it to be a day that we don't want children to remember the mask and COVID and the plexiglass cities and all that. We want them to remember something really, really outstanding. So I'm going to leave you guys with this.
Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look, and you'll see into your imagination. We'll be with a spirit traveling in the world of my creation. What we'll see will defy explanation. If you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want to do it. Want to change the world? There's nothing to it. like a sunrise, sprinkled with dew. Top the red chocolate and the miracle zoo. The Candyman can.
So we wanted our children to know how much we appreciate them coming to school, being at school, giving their 100% each and every single day, so that's why we wanted to treat them to a little something special. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Short. Thank you for all you do for our kids. Any comments? Listen, thank you.
Yeah, you always have a comment. I always have a comment when I see something like that. I am just continually blown away by what all y'all accomplished and the effort that you put in it. I sit here and smile through the whole thing, and you can't see because of my mask, but I'm telling you, I can't say enough about you. I know you're a great leader, and I know you probably have a great team, but some of this stuff is just beyond words. I mean, on a year, you really could have just mailed it in. Nobody would have seen the thing, you know? It's just outstanding. I'm kind of tongue-tied for what I just saw. And, I remember the only color we had in our elementary school was that red bench, and if you sat on it, that means you were going to whip it. That's just outstanding. I love seeing that. So thank you, thank you.
I will have to say one last thing. We issued a little challenge to our teachers. We were gonna do a front foyer, and each of the teachers took hallways. They embraced that. They said, and you know what, we said about $50 to make it happen, which is not a ton, but you see what happened with that. They just used their creativity. We started at 3 o'clock on Monday afternoon. The last teacher left out at about 11:15 that night. So when Tuesday morning, when those kids came in, it was that. So I think they enjoyed it. And like I said, we want them to remember that versus COVID and all those issues.
Truly amazing. Thank you so much for that. And next on the agenda is the South Carolina School Board Association. We have nominations for officers, board of directors, proposed resolutions, and or any proposed constitutional amendments. When is this due to the School Board Association? Any comments, or, we can take these up one at a time. Anybody has any nominations or proposed resolutions or constitution amendments? If not, we can carry it over, or we can not take any action.
I suggest we carry it over.
All right, we can take a little time to take it to, we'll put that in form of a motion.
I make a motion that we carry this over.
To the next meeting. All right, motion is to carry this over to the next meeting, so everybody have time to look at it a little closer and think about any resolutions or amendment, constitution amendments. There's a second? Second by Ms. Nichols. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by raising your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you. Next on the agenda is legislative update. Dr. Levinson?
Yeah, Dr. Coleman, just a couple points, and obviously I know each of you have been tracking legislation as well, but just a few of the main ones that are, of interest to our teachers and school board. House Bill 3609, which is the teacher step increase this current school year, was approved, by the House. The House approved the Senate's, amendments, this past Wednesday, March 10th, and the governor signed it on March 11th. So, we will be getting more information from the state on how, we calculate those numbers, but the legislation covers 100% of the step and the fringe, so there will be no harm to the district, for this teacher step increase. House Bill 3941, which is COVID-19 sick leave, as a joint resolution encouraging school districts to develop and implement an emergency COVID-19 sick leave plans through using ESSER funds. Just as a reminder, we are, even though the allotted days in the federal legislation ended December 30th of this year, we have extended that coverage for our staff members into this current, from January on. So we have a plan in place to address those individuals affected by COVID, that have to be out for COVID-related expenses, that have to be out due to COVID. So, and obviously we will run that throughout the rest of the school year, and then we'll have more conversations as we move forward into next school year. But ESSER funds are there to offset that for them.
When you say COVID or COVID related, you're just talking about the individual themselves?
Correct. You know, they tested positive, you know, staff members tested positive, or a staff member has to be out due to close contact, or a staff member has to be out due to they are the care provider, or someone affected by COVID. And if you remember, you know, they were directly, if the staff member themselves got COVID or were close contact, they could either use their sick days, or the school district would cover 100% of their day. If they had to be out due to COVID to take care of somebody, obviously they could use their leave, or the legislation had us cover 2/3 of their salary. But we have, and thankfully, we have started to see a fairly significant decrease, so we hope that trend continues. You know, in House Bill 3445, the appointment of the state superintendent of education by the governor. Of course, this bill is still moving through the process, as well as Senate Bill 203, removal of school board members. It received third reading and approval by the Senate last week, and it now moves to the House to be assigned to the Education and Public Works Committee. As a reminder, budget deliberations, Dr. Coleman, I believe, in the House will start next week. And then the tentative schedule would be that, obviously then it moves to Senate subcommittees, and the Senate floor debate would be scheduled to start on the week of April 26th. So those are just a few legislative, a few things I've been tracking. Dr. Coleman, anything that you, or you want to add?
I think you hit that. Because spotlight on those, we're glad that Governor signed and the legislature passed the pay raise. That was very important. And fully funded.
Correct.
We appreciate that.
Very much so.
Any questions on the legislation? All right, next is operations, budget update.
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Coleman, in your package, you have, our budget summary, that through February 28th of this year, revenue and expenditures. Of course, you see we received $5,564,966 in our local revenue. We received $7,925,011 in state revenue, and we received $34,703 in federal revenue. So we have received a total of $13,553,107, which is approximately 68% of our projected revenue to this point. Moving down to expenditures, you can see that we have to this point spent or encumbered $11,660,075, which is 59% of our budget. And then the breakdown of our salary, you utilities and repairs, and, our numbers are tracking as they should be, that there's nothing that is jumping out, to cause any concern. Before I take any questions, I do want to denote, as I did last month, if you look over to page one, the, where it has all the accounts, broken out, two areas, we received some additional revenue that we had not budgeted for. So I do highlight, if you look down the remaining balance, about a quarter way down, you denote a negative 83,000, 804 and 58 cents. That's not a negative. Those are funds received. We'll make that correction. Also as well, at the very bottom, third from the bottom, there's a negative 129,505 and 5 cents. That is also, that's not a negative, that is revenue we received from PEBA, but was not budgeted. So we will make those, budget corrections to make sure they reflect correctly, next month. So those two really jumped off the page. Any budget questions of this report at this time, anything I can answer?
Any questions for Dr. Livingston? Any budget update? All right. Next on the agenda is the 21-22 school district budget first reading.
Appreciate it, ma'am. Dr. Coleman, the board apologized, and I did not get this to you in advance. And I want to give you a minute to walk through it. The format is a little bit different, than you've seen in the past, but, so I will, like I say, walk through this to you just as a reminder, especially to our newer board members and the public, that's tuning in. Since we do not have fiscal autonomy, the board doesn't have fiscal autonomy, we have to start our process literally a month earlier than most school districts. We were hoping to have received some solid numbers from the state in reference to revenue this past Friday. Those numbers did not come out, so we literally waited till about 1 o'clock today, hoping to get some numbers, any changes. Now, we have had conversations with the State Department, and to this point, they feel very good that there will be no cuts to revenue. So hopefully what you are seeing is worst case numbers. Also too, still working with the county to, in reference to how much we physically collected in ad valorem taxes from last year, but still trying to get that final number. So if I can just kind of talk through, we'll start with the revenue side first. On the first sheet, you will see the 2021 budget. This was what was budgeted, and in reference to the 21-22 budget that we will be working on, we adjusted those based on actual numbers that we felt as of today were 100%. So hence the ad valorem, we are projecting, we think there's an increase, but I did not want to show an increase until we fully have that firm. So you'll see as we go down, obviously, red are shortfalls in revenue, obviously the black are gains in revenue. So just in local, revenue from local sources, we are at this point in time projecting a shortfall of $56,853 from what we received prior. You can see the adjustments on the state sources, based on what we had budgeted for the prior year and what we actually received. That's how we determine those numbers. That shows an increase of $296,360. As well, at the bottom, other financing sources, an increase of $196,717. The $454,596 would be funds we would need to pull from general funds to bring us to a balanced budget at this point. So that's where that comes from. So obviously, that is where we're looking at as far as an increase in revenue. If you will look at the expenditure page, and once again, so I know this is a little different format, it'll kind of blend in. On the expenditure side, again, we have what we budgeted in 2021, what the board budgeted in 2021, and our budget request for 21, 22, and of course, the differences. And I will come back to salaries as I work through our explanation at the bottom. But an increase to salaries for this year, $676,877. If you will look at the bottom in the note section, $275,230 of that amount would be for the teacher step increase for 2 years, and that is on the assumption the state does not fund it. But as of right now, there's no guarantee they will fund it, so we put it in those numbers. $265,970 would be a 2% step increase for a 2-year period, so in total, a total of 4%. If we elect to get our non-teachers caught up as well. And then some positions that, we have one FTE for an early childhood SPED teacher, which is based on numbers. We really don't have a choice in that matter. An FTE or a teacher assistant for that class as well, based on numbers. The 0.5 FTE for security record / SRO. Deputy Crouch has been our Eshel High School for many years. We've kind of had a 50-50 relationship with the county. Deputy Crouch has been doing a lot of planning really above what I've been paying him for, really as our lead SRO, attending some state meetings, filling out the State Department request as far as security. Something I have been thinking of for a while, had some conversations with the sheriff, and he, to broaden the role, I want to bring Deputy Crouch 100% under the school district. He will still be a sheriff's deputy. He will still be paid by the sheriff's department. That doesn't mess up his retirement. We would just pick up his full salary. And of course, they will still provide the car, the training, the whole 9 yards. And that would be a cost of an extra $25,000. Made a commitment a couple years ago, or the board made a commitment a couple years ago to continue to work with our nurses to get their salaries in line. And obviously, they've always been important, but they're obviously this year's really spotlighted them. So that's the 10,000. Our guidance counselors at our elementary school have been a 192-day contract for years. We need to increase their days at least to 200, so that's an 8-day increase. They do a lot of work in the summer on their own time. So that is that increase. So when you total all those up, that is the increase in salaries, as you see at the top of the expenditure page. And then obviously, going down the expenditure page, obviously, there was an increase in health and dental, obviously with the step increases and teachers, getting back in line, there's been an increase in retirement, our portion of that, slight decrease in FICA, slight increase in workman's comp, and you can see as we move down the line, we held items in check if we could. We actually saw a couple areas that we had over budgeted in the past, quite significantly. So we, realigned some of those numbers. So for first reading of the budget, for us to have a balanced budget as of today, but we are hopeful revenue numbers will look better. We would need to use $454,596 of our fund balance to offset, that. But once again, too, we are very hopeful that revenues will look better. And we're also very hopeful that the state is going to fully fund the teacher step increases for next year. So I am, see this. We're about to come and I'll attempt to answer any questions.
All right, let's have a motion first, and then we'll discuss it. I need a motion to give first readings of the 21-22 budget.
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Nichols, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Holloway, all right. Any discussion, questions for Dr. Davis?
You ready?
The only thing I thought was that it was odd that, we need $404,000 to plus it up, and I understand all that. That's pretty much the same amount that we used to pay the bonuses. I just thought that was fine.
Coincidental.
Had nothing to do with the budget.
I mean, I really think the state will cover that, and we do have to, we'll need a source of revenue somewhere for that one. But this is sort of the worst case scenario we had to.
This is worst case, and once again, too, I'm hopefully gonna have a updated ad valorem collection number by tomorrow, so that that one revenue stream
Make a difference.
could address the whole issue.
Because we're less than 200,000 off if the state lives up to their honor, and that can easily be done later.
I mean, it's just difficult this early to have to make, but we have to get a first reading and to get 3 readings from county council, so.
Hey, I think it's a real good guess. It was a good for a guess.
And we certainly want to take care of our employees, so. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Those opposed likewise, vote unanimous. Thank you, please. Next on the agenda is instruction. Background State Board of Education waiver request. Dr. Lewis?
Yeah, Dr. Cole, I'm gonna ask Dr. Douglas to walk up, but before she presents, we give you a little overview of, what Dr. Douglas is gonna be sharing and a little clarification. As you know, the state board gave great flexibility to a lot of online learning and seat time and things of that nature due to COVID-19. Well, they're not giving that flexibility, without a waiver, as we move forward. And as we were thinking and talking to principals, we want to have the flexibility to meet the needs of our students. Now let me preface this. And I think everybody knows, face-to-face learning, in my opinion, is the best method of instruction. We have over 90% of our students are back face to face. You know, we don't have a crystal ball, but all of our focus is to be face to face next school year, 5 days a week. With that being said, there's always that unique situation that may arise. And we just felt we needed to have the flexibility in the event we needed to provide, in the small event, we do need to make some exceptions. We need to have the flexibility to move forward. So hence, Dr. Duggins, we've got to submit some waivers to allow us to have the flexibility if we need it. So I wanted to clarify that, because I don't want anybody, the board or anybody listening online, thinking that we are face-to-face, 100% instruction is what we want to have. So, but we also need to.
You don't have to use it.
Correct. Like I said, I just wanted to be.
You don't have to use it.
Correct, I just wanted to be as clear as I can on that I don't want anybody out there thinking that we're going to be like we were this year with a mass virtual, option. So, Dr. Douglas, I think I've rambled enough.
Thank you, Dr. Liv. Is this on?
Yep.
Okay, great. So Dr. Livingston is spot on. I equate this work that I'm currently engaging in with some of our leadership team members to the work we did with Accelerate Ed and then our in-district task force. A lot of the work we did was just to have a plan in place so we weren't caught off guard. And so we have been working really diligently on developing a full distance learning model for next year in the case that we need it. As Dr. Livingston said, a lot of waivers were granted last year by the State Department, kind of wholesale. They were out there if you wanted to use it. This year, they are shifting back to the model where you can apply for a waiver, but it's district by district, and they're approved, the State Board of Education is approving on a case-by-case basis. You may remember in the past me letting you know that we were going to submit waivers for things like pencil and paper testing instead of going online testing. So this is just another example of that kind of work. So in your board packet, there was a Word document that had essentially 3 regulations that we are going to seek waivers for. And when Ms. Shore was presenting on the primary school's full distance learning day on Thursday, she mentioned that the kids logged in at 8:15 in the morning and they stayed with their teachers online, with breaks of course, but online till about 10:45, 11 o'clock. In the afternoon, some of them got back online with their teacher for a small guided reading group or perhaps some one-on-one instruction, but a lot of our kids were working at home on the work that their teacher had introduced in the morning. And so technically, according to the regulations, they weren't in school engaged with their teacher for the determined number of minutes for that day. And so the waivers listed on this sheet speak to that. So instead of at the high school level, for example, kids seeing their teachers and being in their seat, we call it seat time, for 120 hours to earn that credit, we instead use something like mastery-based proficiency to have the kids earn the credit, earn the time. And so the waivers listed here speak to that. At this time, before we shift to the other document, the related document, are there any questions about any of these 3 waivers that we plan to seek?
Any questions?
Okay, so the other document in your board packet is a mock-up of an infographic, a flyer of sorts, that we, if we plan to deploy this full distance learning program next year, would share with our community. And it's a smaller scale in your packet. If we were to deploy it, it would be online and larger or printed as a larger, thinner document. But it essentially is an overview of what the full distance learning program would look like. And Dr. Livingston said it just a few minutes ago, it's It's going to be very different. It's going to be more formal. There will be an application process. There are a couple of bullet points that I wanted to highlight there about the application process. We would take a hard look at students who had engaged in full distance learning this past year. And if those students weren't successful, as determined by attendance, by grades, and by formative assessments that we give in our district, we are going to do our very best to get them back in our buildings. Full distance learning is not for all students, and we do believe that that best learning takes place when teachers are in the classroom face-to-face with those students. And so we have at each school, and I'm so proud of the work of the schools, because we already have these structures in place to support this work, but each school has what's called an MTSS team, a multi-tiered system of support for our students. And so those MTSS teams that are made up of administrators and counselors and teachers and coaches will look at the students who have indicated they would like to engage in full distance learning, and they will make that determination. Can this student be successful in this setting? And have those conversations with the families to make sure we are serving our students in the best setting for them.
Can I ask a question now?
Absolutely.
Before I wait till the end?
Yes.
Okay, as I understand this, let's say worst case scenario, we're going to do full distance learning next year. This is what we're talking about, right? So, we're saying, all right, we're gonna do this. Now, I've had little Johnny, my son, in full distance learning this year, but he didn't do so hot. All right, full distance learning is offered. He's not recommended to do it, but I'm saying, me as the parent, I said, no, I just don't want him to be in school. I want him to do full distance learning. What happens?
I think that team counsels that parent. I think they do whatever they can to get the student back in school.
I'm the parent, and I'm saying, I'm just worried about him being in that building. I can't get past that. I don't want Johnny to be in the building.
I think, and Dr. Livingston, I'll ask you to weigh in too, but, you know, this year we had to have a full distance learning option for families.
I understand that, but
And
I'm
so
not
moving
here.
forward, I don't believe that is the case.
That is correct. State Department of Education, as of last conversation, they're not mandating any district have a distance option. Now, when I'm speaking to superintendents across the state, majority of districts are going to have a limited option, and the larger districts may have a larger option. But, and ultimately, you know, the school level will get some input, but, I mean, and if it needs to come to my desk, it will, but no. I wanna have an option for those unique situations in which there's a legitimate COVID issue.
What does that mean?
They have had, there's a health issue that truly, well, we do have some students, and our principals have, we've discussed some, we do still have some students that really do, based on health issues, there may be a few exceptions that it still may not be 100% in the student's best interest. If COVID is still up and running to start school.
This is all a what if
Yes,
scenario.
yes.
That I'm talking about.
Yeah.
What I want to find out is, I guess it all boils down to, are we as a school district going to go against that parent? Are we gonna say, parent, your child, you don't have a legitimate reason to keep your child out as determined by something?
I think we would focus the conversation. Oh.
Yeah, all right. And I was pausing to breathe. And so you sit there and say, you don't have a legitimate reason, parent, to keep your child out. Can we, as a district, and what do we do? Parent is still digging in hard, saying, no, I don't want my child in that school.
That would be a question I would need to consult with our school attorney, but from my stance, if the full distance learning is not what we feel is we as the educators
Right.
are best for that student, I'm going to deny it. I guess, and I see it a little, and I understand that point of view. I guess our rationale for even discussing this as an option for that situation in which there is a legitimate health reason, that parent is in a very supportive environment. I don't wanna lose that kid to other options. Cause really, the option you're talking about, we're their best option. They may not realize that.
Well, I understand that,
Yeah.
and I agree with
Yeah.
you. I'm just wanting to know how far we're gonna go against the wishes of a parent.
I mean, that would also need to be a conversation that I would need to have with council.
What is our?
But yeah, man, that's a great question. But as far as for me, I want the kid face to face, unless there is a.
And I agree with you, by the way, that face-to-face is the best thing.
I've got another question. Is this limited to just COVID because it is coming next year? You have used the word COVID.
We have.
Is the waiver limited to online instruction based on COVID, or is it just a flat online instruction waiver?
That's what we need to look at. And I'll even kind of a step further with this, it's really back to the waivers, a lot of our teachers, and we see this a little bit bigger than just COVID. This really, we have a kid who needs to be home due to an illness that maybe is not real sick, we've got the capability now. That kid can go online and be a part of that class.
See,
So
that's
I
what I was
see,
thinking, there may
So we
be
really are
other
looking
things coming up.
Yeah.
This waiver is gonna be like an umbrella, it's gonna allow us to serve more children than we have in the past. In the past, the only other option a parent had was homeschool or using the virtual school from the state. So now our district, with this waiver, it doesn't have to be limited to just COVID. It can be general health issues they may have an immune deficiency that they've gotta be isolated for a while to get over it or something like that, so they can still use that waiver to meet, it's a good safety blanket to meet the kids' needs, meet them where they are and keep them.
Absolutely, and we plan to write the waiver generally like that. That's an excellent point. There are there were a couple districts in the state that already had an online built into their district program. And so that's kind of what we're thinking. Now, like we said, we want our kids in our building, so we're not trying to push this out on a grand scale, but yes.
But it gives us options that these parents
Yes.
had to go other places to get prior to them.
Absolutely.
And it's an annual waiver, correct?
It is an annual waiver, yes.
We may have a homebound situation or a medical,
See, to me,
a
this would be
short-term
so much
situation.
easier than homebound.
Right, and we would
Yeah,
have
you could
the
pull
structures in place.
online,
Absolutely,
and let them
yes.
have access to the classrooms, and it helps, because homebound's only 4 hours a week.
Right. We also plan to have a strong parent communication piece, a parent information session before the school year
That's what
begins.
we read that.
Yes,
Is this clearly going to be,
yes,
well, not just for the parent, but also for every individual inside the school district to be very informed about what your thoughts are.
yes.
So
So
how this should look like, what this should look like going forward.
So we've already drafted a guidance document, and our principals have gotten in and given us a tremendous amount of feedback, and I'm sure that's something we would share with the board down the road, but we're thinking through all the pieces.
And as we all have talked about, there are a few things we've learned from COVID. There are some practices that we need to maintain. And as we all know, we want to give we don't want to lose students. We may not be able to give the full buffet, but let's at least make sure that we're at least have the capability to offer some options to those unique situations in which they really don't have a choice. So, like I say, we wouldn't know. We will, and thank you for these questions. We definitely want to make sure, these are why we bring stuff to pick brains on. So we'll have some answers to those, and some greater clarification, and we'll have time also to talk to some other districts, so we can, you know, be in line with people like us, with our districts like us.
I think the last piece I would like to add is that we have drafted a kind of a climate check survey that we would like to push out this spring, early this spring, preferably before spring break. I think we're thinking timeline wise, just to get a feel for if this were an option. And the survey makes it very clear that this is an if, this is an option, if this is a necessary option, would you be interested in participating in the full distance learning? And I think at that point, we'll know what we're facing, what kind of numbers we're looking at, how many people are interested in engaging in the full distance learning.
Wait, so what you just told me now, we don't know that we're asking for the waivers as a district, and I can see that. I mean, it's a smart move to plan ahead, you know, plan for the worst, hope for the best. But what you just said was, we're gonna push out a survey to find out, we're basically saying, well, parents, we might be doing this, you know, our best thing is 5 days in seats, butts in seats. So, you know, when you push out that survey to find out if there's interest in full district learning, some parents are gonna sit there and say, oh, well, I wanna do that for my child. I kind of think you're opening a can of worms to do that myself. And I had another question. When you're talking about down here where it says, full district learning students must have reliable internet access, what if it's not available to them where they live?
So we have the state issued hotspots that, especially with the smaller numbers that we anticipate next year, if this happens, they would be issued a hotspot through our district.
And Commander, to go back to the question of the survey, and these are things we have talked, and other people in other districts have talked about too. It will be very clearly communicated, you know, we'll do the videos, the whole 9 yards to explain our goal, but I want nobody to get the impression that we don't want 100% face-to-face every day. So we will clearly explain that, but we also need to view it too, when we get the survey out, and once again too, I think we have a pretty good grasp on those handful of individuals, but we also view it as a proactive way, because if we do get a parent who maybe checks an option that, you know, we have some concerns about, the principal immediately is having that conversation that day, or, you know, in a pretty good timeline, to you know, be proactive in the conversation of, we understand you check this, let's go and have some conversations on what's best for the student now. But we do need to have a little bit of a judge for staffing, which, so that's, but we do recognize what you were saying.
Just make it crystal clear that, this is an emergency plan here.
Yeah.
Great point.
Any other questions? Motion? Motion to approve the South Carolina State Board of Education waiver request. Second. Second by Ms. Holloway, motion by Ms. Nichols. All those in favor, signify by raising your hand. Vote unanimous, thank you. Next on the agenda is the middle school field trip.
Yes, Dr. Carter, I'm actually gonna have, Mr. C, principal of the middle school, come up and, talk through the field trip request, some legwork that's been done already on his end, and then be able to entertain questions.
Good evening. We've had 32 of our students that are Beta Club members qualify for the national competition, which if you think about the fact that there's 281 middle schools in our state, and we've got 32 of those qualifications, we're very excited about that. Our kids worked really hard. I'm gonna be honest, I think we did as well as we did because most of our kids were here 5 days a week, face to face. And they were working with their teachers and just getting better and better each day, where a lot of the people we were against were doing the virtual learning. So I'm very excited that we're gonna have more kids back in the building next year. This field study, is a trip to Walt Disney World where it's being held at the Swan and Dolphin. They'll have an opportunity to compete against the best kids across the nation, where they'll see not only present their content and their projects, but they'll be able to watch during the competition and learn from there. Beta is very much about service and leadership. This will give them an opportunity to expand and learn from there. I've done this trip, but not with Beta before, but I took 101 freshmen down there, which my wife laughed at me when I said we were doing that at the freshman academy I had. We had an amazing trip down there to study physics and the science with roller coasters and things. This to me is even better learning opportunity for our kids to learn to be better leaders, whether it's in literacy, fine arts, all the different categories that are involved in this competition. Our sponsors have done a phenomenal job at trying to get this put together for you in the packet that you received and the information. A little bit of information about Disney, if you haven't heard. My wife and daughters went down there this weekend. When she got married in December, they had to cancel their Disney trip that all of her and her bridesmaids were taking, and their tickets were running out. So they went down this weekend. My wife is a kindergarten teacher in Richland too, and she has said every day that, you know, dealing with kindergartners, it scares her. She said at Disney, she's never felt safer in her life because of the protocols they put in place. You can't even take your mask off to take a sip of your drink unless you're in the designated area and seated. One of the girls in the group actually did that. They pulled her aside and gave her a warning and let her know if she continued to do that, she'd be asked to leave the park. Every ride they've got, everything is blocked off with plexiglass. They're limiting their number of guests to 50%. I've just been amazed, and I knew Disney would do a great job anyway. They always do, but just the things that they have in place, and to hear it firsthand from my family has been great as well. But we're excited to have the kids have the opportunity. We've got 15 students who would like to go, 18 really, but 3 of their families have chosen for them to ride with them because they want to make it a family trip. So that gets us down to where instead of having to rent a large charter bus for $6,000, we can do this for $1,000, including gas, in one 15-passenger van. So we're excited about that. We originally, if you looked at the original cost, it was about $850. We've gotten that down to about $550 for each family, but we're also continuing to work on fundraising within the school each day. I would say there are ways we can make the trip a little more expensive, maybe a little safer, like adding a second van to spread the kids out. There are things that we can do there. If we want to make it cheaper, then we could go to something. Right now we've got 2 kids per room because we're trying to keep them separate. But we could do the normal thing when you do a field study and put 4 in a room, but we felt like it was safer to spread them out. So we feel like we're taking all the safety precautions that we can, and it's just a learning opportunity that these kids may never get again. We'd love for them to be able to participate. Questions?
Questions for Mr. C?
Of course, any student engagement opportunity for success and also to help us build adults, I understand that. I have a couple questions, of course, concerns, just traveling out of state and of course going to Florida. And I'm with you about Disney, I'm sure they did it correct and did it right. So this year, what's different to participate this year than it has been in the past? What brought this to go to the national this time?
We typically have students that qualify,
Right.
but the numbers are so few, their families can take them, or it might be in Myrtle Beach or somewhere close. This year, we've just got such a large number that it makes more sense to do a field study from the school as opposed to other families who may not be able to afford to take the entire family to Disney.
Okay, the state convention was done virtually
Correct.
in Georgia, in North Carolina, and also in Florida. So do we have awards from those? Did we participate in those virtually?
We participated in South Carolina's competition, but nationals is face-to-face in Florida. Yes, sir.
I honestly just have some concerns about, this, every state, from my research, did it virtually. And then so now, face-to-face, in July, I've just got some concerns with that. We talk about keeping children in our family unit. We ask them when we go to, when ball games are happening or anything else, we mark things off to keep everybody hopefully in their family unit area. We encourage that. These students, I'm sure some of them have classes together, but then again, I'm sure some of them do not.
Yes, sir.
We keep them in the same rooms. We don't move them around too much. So I do have some concerns.
What precautions is Veda said they're gonna do? I know Disney does a great job, I've been there during this.
A lot of what we're doing is, we're gonna follow our same protocols that we've been following every day. They're gonna wear masks anytime they're near anyone. We're gonna keep them as distant as possible throughout the day. Like you're saying, Disney does a great job, but they make you line up and they enforce that. So they help me a lot easier than it is in the cafeteria some days. But I think the best part about this, as far as safety-wise, is that we know we're going into an environment like Disney. It's at their hotels, it's at their event, and they will follow those same protocols that they're following within the parks. Yes, South Carolina was done virtually, and so were the other states, but it was because of the time frame, the vaccines were not out, and I think that's made them a lot more comfortable having it face-to-face. Do I wish that it was July or August? Yes. But I think that was why they decided to go ahead, because they have a much more controlled environment than we would have at a convention center in South Carolina. We do keep our kids separate for most of the day. Our kids are intermixing in related arts in the hallways when they change class. We are keeping them and following our protocols every day, and we plan to do that on the trip as well. That was one of the reasons I mentioned possibly 2 vans, so that the ones who are traveling together that are in classes, we can have them seated closer together versus the ones who are not.
I also have some concern like Christmas, because, Florida opened up things a lot earlier than any other place, any other state. And they've been open for a long time.
Yes, sir.
And as far as mass concern, I mean, these young people have to eat somewhere. And, who knows who they will be around. A lot of them have to eat.
Correct. And most of our meals would be at a Disney facility. And that's probably one of the reasons, that's probably my biggest concern every day, is when we take our mask off to eat, on campus. So it would be the same on that trip. That will plan out as, if we're allowed to go, we'll plan that out and make sure that we're taking that into account as well.
I'm just gonna go out on a limb here and say, if I thought all our kids were being safe here in South Carolina, you said they have to eat, I agree, but they all going to Migs, they all going to Burger King, they all going to wherever they want to go to eat. I don't have as much fear of it, I think, as other people do. I think that at some point in time, we're gonna have to let these children cheat, and we can choose to hold them back, but I just don't see it. I don't have the fear. So from my perspective, I think turning those down go.
My kids, not necessarily children, when they come back home with a parent, grandparents. I had a friend the other day, he had all tried to keep days, you know, they was fine. Some of them were tested negative. Until they finally one day tested again, oh, we positive. There's no sense.
Any other questions at the moment? I'll entertain a motion, and we take action on approving the middle school field trip.
We didn't have a motion yet, we had all that
We have a
discussion.
motion.
Well, I move that we approve the middle school, field trip.
Okay, there's a second. Motion by Commander Moore, second by Mr. Jordan. Any other discussion? I would recommend another family. That was a concern for me. Any other questions?
Do you have mixed grades going?
Yes.
Like how many, like you got sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, or just, I need to know.
I don't think their grade levels are actually on homes.
It says 6th grade on there, I think.
Yeah, I knew it did, but, you know, we keep the kids by grade, so if you had like seventh and eighth graders going to a bus with seventh graders, bus with eighth, they're there together anyway. You know, so that way you're not, you're using a little more precaution. Or when you room assignment, if you got two girls in the same grade, they've been together the whole time, so, you know, try to group them as much as you could by the kids that are together more during their day.
Yes.
And they did participate in teams when they won these awards, right?
Yes.
They were,
So, see, they're already been
they're together.
together.
Some of them are teams, some of them are individuals, but absolutely,
Yeah.
especially like with robotics, that's
Right.
our
That's a
team.
big team.
Yes.
That's a nice team.
Yes.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor, signify by raising your hand. All opposed?
Abstain.
I'm opposed, and I'm gonna say why.
Good.
I'm making this decision as of right now, I have to say that.
All right, motion carries. Next on the agenda is superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Coleman. Just a few things, first, we just want to publicly congratulate, our Lady Tigers on their 2A state championship. Extremely proud of Coach Wilder, her team, cheerleaders, student body, parents, and the community for all of their support. Several of you had the opportunity to be up there, and that was, that is what makes Saluda a special place. From the sheriff's escort, through Saluda to the town of Johnston, picking the team up to escort them to their town line, to the fans that were there, to the watch parties at all of our schools. It was truly a great day in Saluda County. So, as always, want to thank the board for their support. And Dr. Coleman is in conversations right now with Superintendent Spearman and the delegation, so we can make sure that our ladies get their trip to the State House and their meal as the football team did. So, very, very excited and very proud. Very, very proud. A group of hard-working young ladies that are great student athletes and great kids in our hallways. That was a win-win for everybody. Last Thursday, as you all know, we had our first dose vaccine event right here in this room. Extremely well organized. I want to thank Self Regional for their part, the complex administration and maintenance and technology for what they did to have it organized, our principals for organizing the e-learning day, our teachers. Just to let you know, we had over 200 staff members who received their first dose on that day. And we had a little over 300 community members that received their first dose on that day. They notified us about 1 o'clock, said we got X number of vaccines left, get on the telephone. So we got on the telephone and we called. So we wanted to use every drop. They will be coming back, self-regional, same location on Thursday, April 8th, during our spring break. Glad we were able to coordinate that during spring break. So that way we will not have to have an e-learning day for any staff member or community member who cannot come back on the 8th. Of course, y'all have all received your COVID card, and they were all given instructions on, what to do if they need to go find another provider. So, we're looking to put at least another 500 doses of vaccine out on that day. And you saw the lights on outside. Hopefully we're gonna be able to wrap up in time so we can go outside. But spring sports are in full swing. Please stop by and support our teams when you get a chance. So very busy, very exciting, pretty much back to normal in Saluda County Schools, and very proud to say that. And that's it, Dr. Coleman.
You found the golf
Coach Wilder and our text this afternoon, the weekend we had a good lead. But we have a second good lead if that first lead follows. Yeah. I will get clarification, Commander Moore, and I will text you probably for tonight's salary, not first thing in the morning.
You don't have to do that. I was just curious.
No, you know who my backup is.
Hey, I was just saying, he sounds like he's volunteering.
No. I had a conversation with Jeanette, and I recommended somebody to her other than me. I've been there, done that, got a t-shirt. Actually, I got several golf shirts. Several.
Next on the agenda is executive session. While in executive session, we'll discuss personnel matters and teacher contract. Is there a motion to go into executive session? Motion by Dr. Freer, second by Ms. Holloway. All those in favor, signify by raising your hand. Vote unanimous. We're now in executive session.